So, the big reveal of this quest. What's the goal of the Loom of Fate? They're gonna revive Conria. I wonder if someone said that about a year ago. Ever wonder how we were gonna end up exploring the fallen nation of Conria as a region in, what, about 2 years' time? What, were we just gonna muck around in the rubbles, play with the dust-covered, barefoot, sinning gremlin they call children? No. No. Maybe once, but now it seems like there's an alternative. A horrifying one at that. An alternative that may just allow for us to experience Conria, and all the scum that once resided there in its unholy days, and make it so when we finally head there, it's as if the disaster never happened. The Loom of Fate. Interesting device, huh, fellas? But why would they want their own ley line system? My friends, what if it's to revive the homeland? Let's not forget the way we use ley lines all the time, and it's to relive the memories of the land. I don't know, though. It feels like a rather big jump to go from fucking turning Hilichurls back into humans to reviving the nation, or the memory of a nation, and bringing it into reality. But this would help to explain how we do end up winding up in Conria, and again, like, 2 years. Fuck it, they brought it back using the Loom of Fates. And I don't know, I'm still not entirely convinced, just given Kari Bear told us the Loom of Fates can't mess with the older ley lines, but if that's the case, then how can it accomplish a task as grandiose as allowing us to relive Conria? What memories is it going off of? Shouldn't it just be empty, given it was just made, or was it, or is it gonna go off the fucking Abyss Order's memories of Conria, given the Abyss Order is just comprised of Conrian scum? Vindication feels nice. Folks, I can walk down 2 paths here. Become a humble beast and act like I've been here before, or slobber on the pecker. Which one am I gonna pick? I'll use a clip I made 4 years ago to answer that question. Do not ask the origins or context of this clip, I'm not gonna answer. And I took the pills, went away. So 3 more right after that. Folks, you may not know this about me, but I often don the mask of a clown to hide my true, scary, dark, genius intellect. But here I stand before you now. Brilliant. And in my victory speech, there's but a few words I'd like to use to describe myself, the smartest and greatest person alive on Earth. Godlike. Humble, reasonable. This was jokes aside, this was a very good quest. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and the fate of Direidyth genuinely shocked me. I won't lie, big man like myself, toughest of tough, baddest of bad. I was actually quite sad to see her fate. Like, genuinely, I was like, she didn't deserve that, man. Anyway, we got work to do. The big question I'd imagine going through everyone's minds is the 3 keys. I'm not going to go into great depth right now. Next video is a whole thing about that, just because, again, it's a whole thing. You know, the short of it is, it's actually a type of temporal paradox known as a bootstrap paradox. This is when an object or an event loops through time in a way that it exists because it's already existed. In this case, the sibiling created a template Conria, placed it over present-day Notlon, and this is what allowed the Direidyth of the past to exist in the present. We crossed paths with her, handed her our key from the present, and she took it back to her own timeline 500 years in the past. Problem is, in that past, both the siblings already had a key, so now there are 3 identical keys at one point in time, 2 from the past and 1 from the traveler in the future that does not belong. It's a key with no origin that only exists because time looped on itself. This is the bootstrap paradox. That's the short of it. Feel free to look it up or, simply wait for me, the smartest man alive, to explain it on Saturday. But again, this is a whole thing, so, we'll get there when we get there. But first, we've got a recap. Yeah, sorry, no whys this time. Spent too much time sucking on it. The story starts in Notlon by the collective of Plenty. The traveler hears Paimon's voice, but for some reason, it sounds muffled. We come across Yansan, who calls us by our government's name, and she asks us if we can help take up patrols because the tribe is holding a bodybuilding competition, and the regular patrollers would much rather bodybuilds than patrol. Whilst patrolling, we come across a rather calm Hilichurl in a cave, who runs off when we approach. While inspecting the cave it was in, we come across an odd find, a shiny object, small in nature. The traveler becomes sullen upon realizing what it is. it's the key to his hibernation pod on the spaceship that brought him to Teyvat. However, it's not his key, as his key is on his persons, which means this key belongs to our sibiling, and she must be nearby. Our suspicions are confirmed when Yansan runs over to tell us the bodybuilding competition has been cancelled because the Abyss Order attacked. The attack was on such a grand scale, it's as if they declared war against Notlon. We wonder what's caused them to act so overt this time, so we head to Mawika to see if she knows anything. She says the Order has attacked multiple tribes simultaneously, and the Abyss Order seems to have grown their forces a lot. Regardless, it's still an entire nation versus a cult, so... you know, because of this fact, Mawika says we don't need to fight, but we tell her we must, because our sibling leads the Order. Mawika then asks if we know what the Abyss Order is after, but we say we don't. Mawika then reaffirms our allegiance to the nation of family before telling us if we want to help, we should head to the Masters of the Nightwind because they were hit the hardest. We mosey on over there and run into Seatlali, who is simply annoyed her tribe was hit the hardest, and then we proceed to get the most horrific dialogue sequence in media history.
They call themselves the Abyss Order, yes? Ugh, so tasteless. It's exactly the kind of two-dimensional name a clueless writer picks because they don't trust the rest of their writing to persuade the reader of who the real villains are.
Hey! She's saying your sister has poor taste.
Wait, what? Are you saying his sister is a member of the Abyss Order? I only said that because I was mad, but maybe I went too far.
Hey, let's save the chat for later. We've got some enemies incoming.
Good. A much-needed chance to vent my frustration. And not a moment too soon. Things were getting awkward there. Luckily, I'll never have to find out just how badly the rest of that conversation was gonna go.
We proceed to storm their nearby strongholds, and after destroying them, the drunk begins to demand alcohol. Yansan, however, has concerns as for some reason, most of the enemy chose to flee instead of fight. The Traveler wishes he could speak to his sister and get some answers. Yeah, because you got a great history of pressing her for answers, don't you, bitch?
There's so much I wanted to ask you, but for some reason, I'm not interested in asking those questions right now.
We decide to go back to the cave, but find nothing until a young woman runs up asking us for help. She's a bit taken aback upon seeing the Traveler, but continues she needs help dealing with the monsters chasing her. We're a bit confused, however, as we see no monsters. However, the young lady insists they're right there. As we turn to talk to Paimon, the girl is struck down by these seeming monsters, and as we head to help her up, we can suddenly see the monsters and say we'll take care of them. She thanks us for being her savior, and off we go. After the fight, Paimon reveals she still couldn't see the monsters, which indicates to us holding the young woman's hands is the key. So we gotta touch her hand again to make sure there are no monsters left, but she pulls away and says not to worry, there's no more monsters. She says she pulled away because she's shy. She introduces herself as Dairydyth. That is such a pretty name, by the way. I'll name my son Dairydyth. Dairydyth says she sprained her ankle running away, so we volunteer an MTK for her to rest up, because hey, ain't no healing like healing in a cave, bro. You see that tribe over there about 100 meters away with medical supplies and beds? Hey, they don't got nothing for you. Alright? Ain't no healing like healing from a geological formation, baby. We ask Dairydyth where she's from, and she says a small village nearby. She was walking and eventually got lost, so she has no idea where she is right now, but no one said finding the savior was going to be easy. Given that's the second time she's called us the savior, we wonder what's going on, and she tells us. One day a sage passed through her village. The sage was said to be omniscient. The sage spoke thus: doomsday was coming. However, when it arrived, a savior would reveal themselves. Given doomsday is almost here, but the savior had not yet shown up, Dairydyth decided to go looking for the savior. She says we look nearly identical to the description of the savior, someone with golden hair. However, she says it can't be us, because the savior was described as a woman, which to us indicates the savior is our sister, which we relay to Dairydyth. Dairydyth, now ecstatic, wishes to meet with our sister, but we say we have no idea where she is, so Dairydyth offers to help us find her. She then says, while we aren't the savior, we're the savior of her dreams. That line ought to buy Helio like 3 months of goodwill from the self-inserting guppies. We decide to leave Dairydyth holed up in the cave while we head to the Masters of the Nightwind. We again run into... well, isn't that odd? My eyes seem to be playing tricks on me. This must be Dainsleif, because I know damn well this was advertised as a Dain quest and not a fucking Jansan quest. Dain, old boy, asks us to visit the guards. The only interesting thing we learn is one of the guards saw some Abyss Orders huddled around a fire, meditating in some cult-like practice. See, Lolly then runs into us and says she sensed something odd in her dreams. A noise had found its way into Notlon's ley lines. It isn't affecting the Night Kingdom or Notlon's ley lines, though. It's as if the signal exists on a different plane of reality entirely. As a result of this, Lolly thinks they should amass an army and just forcibly drive the Abyss out of Notlon, but Jansan says getting the troops will take some time. We tell Lolly and Jansan about the girl we found, the invisible monsters case.
Really? You had to hold her hand to see the monsters? Sounds a little contrived.
Huh? That's the part that bothers you? Maybe the point is more that it requires direct physical contact, whether that be hand-holding or otherwise.
Jansan, however, is more concerned with why Direidyth called the leader of the Abyss Order a savior and raises suspicions concerning her. We decide to go check on Direidyth, who tries jumping us with a flimsy attack, thinking we were monsters. We eat with her, and as night falls, she admires the stars and says as a kid, she always gazed up and wondered if the sky was ever actually real. Her brilliant grandmother would tell her the answer to that question doesn't matter. People who spend their whole lives in the village think it's their whole world, and so thus, if we live under the sky, it's our whole world, and all that matters is that it's real to us. Brilliant. Genius, even. Third only to me and me. We then get some propaganda to counter the truth, with Direidyth stating she never really agreed with her grandmother, and she always wanted to see beyond the village, beyond the sky, and Paimon agrees. And so thus, that's how she will end up on her journey to find the savior. She says maybe one day, she'll sit and talk with someone just like us, except they'll be from a different world. The traveler senses no evil intentions from Direidyth, and in that moment, the monsters arrive. We still can't see them, so we take her hand, and alas, we can see them. After taking them out, Direidyth begins gassing us up to Kingdom Come before offering us to stay the night in the cave. We had to sleep but awaken in the Night's Kingdom, where by chance we happen to see our sibling chatting away with the Lord of the Night about something we can't hear, and she has an intivat in her hands. We then hear a high-pitched noise before someone who sounds a lot like Nicole begins speaking of Doomsday and the Savior.
A blood-red sky. Wild beasts that slaughter all in sight. Endless pain. A terrible curse that cannot be reversed. And the birth of a savior.
She's just describing the cataclysm of Conria. We awake to find Direidyth holding our hand, who grabs it after we had a nightmare. We head back to sleep, awaken, make a 3-day meal prep for Direidyth, and just as we head off, she asks how she can contact us in the future if she finds anything about our sibling. We tell her she can just write a letter to Mawika, but she asks, who's Mawika? And in that moment, we spot the Abyss Order on the move. They're running away. Strangely, Direidyth can't see them, so we grab her hand, and lo and behold, she can see them. We head to the Masters of the Night Wind to see what happened, and Jansan tells us the Abyss Order's front line has entirely collapsed. However, it wasn't because of anything they did. This was the results of one man, fast as lightning, powerful as thunder. It was Dainsleif. So we go to greet him at the entrance of the tribe because he was coming here for some reason. Jansan thanks Dainsleif for his contributions to the machine before leaving. We ask Dain if he knows anything about the Abyss Order's actions, and he says he's never seen the Abyss Order act like this ever, and that there must be something deeper going on here. Dain then smiles. Then asks if we've any news on our ends. We tell him our sibling is probably around and that Direidyth is, existing. He gets hung up on Direidyth calling our sibling the Savior, and says the last time he heard that title was before the Cataclysm, and back then, it also referred to our sibling, and he's baffled that it could still have stuck around after Doomsday had already happened. We're a bit confused, so we ask Dain to clarify, and he says when our sibling was first granted the title of Princess, the Finster King, probably King Ermin, proudly boasted to the nation the might the princess would bring to Conria. With the princess, all pain and suffering would cease, and Conria's future would be brighter than ever. I mean, wasn't really wrong about that latter point. Savior was the title gifted to the princess by those who believe this tale. Dain says in the end, all that title stood for was the Finster King's lust for power. We then wonder if our sibling is so determined to bring Conria back because they think they failed as Conria's savior, but we reason there must be other factors at work as well. Dain then says with regards to Deirdre, she's probably a Conrian with the curse of immortality, born into a family that lives in some remote area cut off from the rest of society, hence why they still believe a centuries-old myth. Dain, however, just doesn't care about her and would rather fight the Abyss Order. The next morning, we see Dain and Yansun talking. Yansun states the Scions have found out the Abyss Order is headquartered in Cinder City, and that the army is ready. All they gotta do is wait for the Archon's approval. Dain doesn't like it and states waiting for her approval is wasting precious time, and because we have the intel, we must act now. Yansun says no, and Dain says he'll just go alone then. He's not gonna beat her. He should have beat her. No. He does, however, stare at us in a way that says, come on, little nigga! Anyway, we storm him with Dain. Dain's in the party, he can do some special attacks, before coming across Head Honcho, a Baptist. He taunts Dain for not being able to die, and says Dain's actions are meaningless, as the princess has already won, and the Abyss Order's greatest wish has been fulfilled. The princess ventured into the Knight's Kingdom to use the realm's experience with leyline reconstruction, and then use the Loom of Fate to reweave the ley lines of Conria, which means the attack on Notlon was just a bluff to buy her some time. The Baptist confirms this, and says the homeland is back, and all from Conria will be reborn in their new home. Dain calls bullshit. Even Paimon says, little nigga, even if we got the ley lines, you still gotta find a place to host them. Luck knows why she knows that, but Dain simply asks one question. If Conria has indeed been revived, where is it? The Baptist laughs and asks if we've truly noticed nothing off since the start of the war, prompting us to recall Seatlali's words that she heard a noise in the ley lines sounding like it existed on a different plane of reality. We recall seeing our sibling in the Knight's Kingdom, and we recall Deirdre and the invisible monsters before wondering if maybe we exist in a different time and space from her, and if that Conria also exists in a different time and space. Dain says we must believe nothing coming from the mouth of the Baptist, and we should kill him instead! Chop his fucking balls off! We wonder if Deirdre comes from the revived Conria, so we head to her while Dain stays behind to investigate some clues before getting yoinked. He's immortal though, so Dain just gets right back up and recognizes the Baptist as someone too cursed with immortality, a lad named Haden, who reveals himself to be Dain's teacher. Given they're both immortal, Haden really can't be fucked to fight right now just because it'll go nowhere, right? They both can't die. But that's not stopping Dain, old boy, who chooses to kill Haden 100 times over. They decide to chat for a bit, and Dain says he still can't believe Haden chose the Abyss Order, and that he could have blamed the princess for her betrayal. When the cataclysm first struck, everyone prayed to the savior, but she was nowhere to be found. He then says the abyssal power within her had been divided up, which is presumably how the sinners got their power. However, after it was all said and done, she chose to leave them all. Haden believes everything she does now is due to regrets over what's happened, and if they can't trust her, then who? The gods? They're Conrians. Dain simply says he can't believe Haden ever forgave her, before stating maybe if he was that generous with him as a teacher, he wouldn't have come to hate him so. Dain says the good deeds he committed while a student resulted in corporal punishments. His fellow student Suralogi lost limbs over it. Dain then accuses Haden of being the one behind their punishments. Haden acted friendly, but in reality just wanted to crush the upcoming generation of knights to make himself more reputable. Dain presses Haden to admit it, but Haden can't, because he doesn't remember. He remembers nothing due to erosion, and it's only thanks to the Abyss he even has a physical form that isn't decrepit. He would, however, like to remember his past, no matter how bad it may have been. He then apologizes for any wrongdoings he may have committed against Dain, before asking him to tell him of the Conria they once called home, which Dain does. Haden presses Dain for more, the Golden Age, but Dain says no. Haden says it matters not, so long as the Loom of Fate has it, it does not matter if he heard it. Haden then reveals that Dain correctly called his bluff earlier. Conria hasn't been revived, and as a matter of fact, they haven't even completed weaving those fucking ley lines. Given ley lines are a collection of memories, in order to reweave Conrian ley lines, they need the memories of Conria from 500 years ago. The Loom of Fate needs a rather large supply of memories, and so they turn to the Abyss Order to all remember what they could, given they're all Conrians. And the more they share, the more that's restored. That was the meditation the guard saw earlier. Hudden continues, it's been over 500 years. The memories they possess are bound to be broken, and a world made from broken memories will itself be broken. So, in comes Dainsleif, in possession of a ring left to him by Vedrfolnir, which continuously resets his body's condition. While he's still subject to erosion, he'll remember better than most. They needed his memories, no matter the cost. Hudden states, thanks to him, the Loom of Fate has finished weaving the ley lines, and New Conria is here, baby! Dain then decides to kill Hudden another 100 times, and we swap to us, going to seek Direidyth. We spot many cubes of hope and justice belonging to our beloved sustainer of heavenly principles, and reason this is the Cataclysm. This confirms our theory, and Direidyth also asks as much, questioning if we're from the same world. We tell her we're from her future, which she takes as a good sign, as it means the world can't be ending. She asks what happens to Conria before telling us not to answer. Direidyth says we can only fight for an unknown future, so she'll continue looking for the savior in her own timeline, even if we aren't there. She does, however, say to her, we're the savior, and we can change everything. It's just sad we don't come from the same time and place as her. Direidyth then says something interesting. Given we want to find our sister, when she finds her, is there anything we can give her as proof the two met? We then realize what's happened. The hilly trail we first saw run out of the cave was Direidyth in the present day. She was struck with the curse of the wilderness and turned into a hilly trail. As for how she obtained a hibernation key, you are now presented with two different choices. You can either give your key to Direidyth or keep it. I chose to give her the key, which is the, in quotations, correct choice. Ultimately, the outcome is the same no matter what you pick. If you choose to keep your key, the sibling simply tosses their key to Direidyth before telling you you're not allowed to change fate this time. After giving Direidyth the key, our sibling appears and says Istaroth, the Shade of Time, must have been behind this. Our sibling states they only knew the ending, but never the events leading up to this. 500 years ago, the Cataclysm struck. The sibling states they were preparing to fight back with all they had, until Direidyth found them and begged her to save the world, while also bringing her the hibernation key and telling her we are looking for her. Lumine tells us after awakening in Teyvat, she searched the entire planet, but couldn't find us, and then came Direidyth, bringing this news right as the Cataclysm was happening. So the sibling had to make a choice: stay with Conria and fight, or come to see us. She chose to see us and abandon Conria. When she found us, we were still in hibernation and the key to our chamber was still on us, meaning 3 keys existed at the same time. The key on our persons, our sibling's key, and the key we gave to Direidyth. Where we are right now is the intersection of their memories. The sibling realizes their actions 500 years in the future caused all this in the past, which causes them to wonder if Istaroth is mocking them. We ask if Conria has been revived yet. Lumine says no, but says the ley lines are complete. She says she always assumed all the ley lines of this world were locked by the heavenly principles. Can't add any or replace the existing ones. But then she learned the Night Kingdom was an exception to this rule. So she had the Abyss Order stage an attack on Notlon while she ventured into the Night Kingdom to negotiate with the Lord of the Nights. While the Night Kingdom cannot host new ley lines, she could weave them there, so she activated the Loom of Fate using an Teyvat as the base and grew a realm based on Conria 500 years ago, throwing it over present-day Notlon space and time so it still exists in its own space and time. This is how we and Direidyth crossed paths, and the key swap could happen. We realize we saw the meeting in our dreams, but wonder why the Lord of the Night agreed to this. After the new Conria was made, it was enriched with memories of the old Conria using the Abyss Order's memories, and so thus, the Loom of Fate completed its work, and it's all here in what she calls the Atlas of the New World, a product of the Loom of Fate. It holds the entire network of Conria's ley lines, and with it, the homeland can be revived, and all she needs to do now is find a place to hold all those ley lines. We ask why she wants to revive Conria so, and she says, when she first arrived to Teyvat 500 years ago, her memories were gone, and only after being their princess for many years did her memories slowly start to return, including of us. As a result, she sees Conria as a second home, but even still, there's a greater reason. If she wishes to speak with the heavenly principles as an equal, she needs the might of an entire world behind her. It's then our sibling notices something off in the distance, and just leaving is our beloved sustainer of heavenly principles, who seemingly heard everything. 5 years, and this is what we get. Worth it! Anyway, cutscene time. Hope you niggas like silence. Back at the Masters of the Night's Wind Seat, Lolly just gives us the skinny. The world's atlas can preserve entire nations, just as it's done right now with Conria, and the Lord of the Knights gave our sibling the go-ahead when she was certain it'd have no effect on Natlan, but added an additional condition that she would not reveal to Seat Lolly, and is now seemingly known only to our sibling and the Lord of the Knights. Bye.